Hello again, everyone. I am Chris Scher, and this is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. Robert Harding, Justin Ritzel joining me. St. Patrick's Day Eve, I guess we can call this. So, anyways, all righty. So we've got three good sports topics to discuss today. And our first one, we'll get right to it, is the NFL because we like to make jokes that the NFL season never truly ends. But this week, there is actually stuff going on. It's free agency. The contracts are flying fast. Players are verbally agreeing to deals with new teams. And sometimes they're kind of walking back and not going to their new teams. Robert knows what I'm talking about. But we've seen a lot of action in so far. And I guess the official league year starts pretty soon. I think, 4 o'clock, everything gets going officially. They can start announcing things, signing things. But, of course, the big one that dropped on Sunday, proverbial bomb, was Tom Brady saying, "I'm back." Although, did he really leave, though? I mean, we knew. Come on. Are we really surprised? Didn't we know that he was going to come back? He didn't slam the door shut.
Well, he didn't slam it shut, but, to come back this soon, you wonder. I saw some crap about his father saying that, the reports, that he was going to retire, that's why he made this announcement, that somehow his hand was forced. And it's like,
no,
what are you talking about? Like, he can do whatever he wants. Like, if the reports were wrong, they were wrong, but clearly they were right. He was seriously contemplating this, and here we are today. He changes his mind. So it is interesting, though, that he's going back to the Bucs, because I think a lot of the chatter surrounding his, unretirement, that unretirement scenario, was that he would go play for a different team, perhaps the 49ers, perhaps somewhere else. And he goes back to the Bucs, which, tells me that, he's not interested in going to a new team where, there might be some pieces that still need to be put in place. He knows the Bucs pretty well. He knows that they still have a pretty good team there, and that they can compete for, an NFC title and another spot in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, was I surprised? No, but it seemed like he was committed to this retirement thing, at least for, the short term. I didn't expect a reversal this soon. Maybe come June or July, when training camp is like getting near, and maybe he gets that itch again. But I mean, we're in March. The Super Bowl was a month ago. so this
he didn't do the Brett Favre retirement. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, remember Brett Favre said, "Oh yeah, I'm retiring." Then really it was just a ploy to get traded or whatever. He was going to retire. He wasn't going to, I don't know, but that was a long time ago. But look, Bruce Arians even said, someone asked him like last week, well, what about if Tom Brady comes back, and he says, yeah, he's going to be a Buccaneer. He's not playing anywhere else. So I think that had something to do with it. And the fact that Brady was in Europe last week, some soccer pitch, talking to, what was it, Messi or something, some soccer guy. Ronaldo, whatever. I take pride in my soccer ignorance.
Some soccer pitch.
Yeah.
Messi. Oh my God.
Yeah. Give me credit for at least knowing the call.
It was at a Manchester United match, and I believe Cristiano Ronaldo scored a hat trick in that game. So he might
have money in that. Did you have money on that prop?
Not have money on that.
Look, Tom Brady, I think it's pretty easy, really. The guy still has it. There's no drop off so far. If you're healthy and you can still play at that level, you continue to play. I mean, I understand the whole family thing and everything, but seriously, I mean, look, I understand football. There is no off season for certain things. I get that. But seriously, this guy has a lot of time with his family, okay? February, March, April, May, June, and basically most of July, he's got all that time to spend with his family, okay? And then obviously once training camp starts in August through January, okay, 5 months a year, he's completely devoted to football. He's got 7 months with the family. That's pretty darn good. And I'll tell you this, if my dad was Tom Brady, fine, Dad, go ahead, keep playing football. Whatever. That's what makes you happy. Keep doing it. So All right, Justin, go ahead. Your thoughts on this?
Well, what more does this guy have to prove? I mean, nothing really. He's widely considered the greatest quarterback to ever play. Some say he's the best player to ever play. I do wonder, like you say, like, oh, well, he's got plenty of time for family. Well, I don't know. At one point, if you're a 15-year-old kid, I don't know how old Tom Brady's kids are, but you're a 15-year-old kid and you have a high school basketball game on a Friday night or a football game on a Friday night, and sorry, my dad's preparing for the Saints, so he couldn't make it. I mean, you can't say that doesn't matter at some point. But Tom Brady, I'm not going to sit here and tell him what to do with his life. If he wants to play football, obviously he's still capable. He should do that. To say that this isn't exactly what Brett Favre did, it is. Tom Brady put the retirement announcement out there. I know it was a little funky, like kind of how it went down, because it got reported before he was willing to come out and make his Instagram post about retiring. He allowed all the the celebration about his career to happen, and then 2 months later, a month and a half later, he decided he still wants to play. No, he did not hold a press conference and all teary-eyed say he's retiring from the game like Brett Favre did. But I mean, I think a lot of the things are similar. And I'll say this is what bothers me the most. And yes, this is coming from the Packers fan, but I was so annoyed at the reaction to what people said about Tom Brady coming back out of retirement versus the coverage of the Aaron Rodgers, will he, won't he come back to Green Bay over the last, month. Because all people did with Rodgers was say he wants all the attention. He wants, all the spotlight on him. He loves how the media is talking about him. Will he or won't he? When, yes, obviously the guy is aware of the conversation was being centered around him. But all he did was post something on Instagram and go on the Pat McAfee show once. Here you got Tom Brady, who let this whole retirement thing play out. He's posting stuff on Instagram. This is the same guy who made 2 documentaries within the last 3 years about his career. And yet when he seeks attention, no one criticizes him for it because he's Tom Brady. And God forbid we say anything negative about the guy. I just think there's a bit of hypocrisy about that. I think when you've reached the level that some of these guys have, do whatever the hell you want. If you want to take a month to decide about your future, you've earned that. So the people that are out here criticizing one guy for doing the same thing or criticizing one guy and not criticizing another guy for basically doing the exact same thing, I think that's a bunch of nonsense. I think Favre caught a lot of heat back in the day for his wishy-washiness. Same thing. If he wants to take his time, by all means, team will figure it out. Chris, you brought up something about Bruce Arians saying, oh, he's going to be a Buccaneer or he's not going to play anywhere. Bruce Arians needs to shut the hell up because the Buccaneers' priorities, let's be honest, Bruce Arians is well behind Tom Brady. The guy doesn't even call plays, okay? He's a stand-in on the sideline. He creates more controversy just by comments like this, the stuff he said around the Antonio Brown stuff. He just needs to be quiet. If Tom Brady said, I'm only coming back to play for San Francisco or Las Vegas because I want to join my buddy Josh McDaniels, Bruce Arians is not standing in Tom Brady's way. I'm sorry. They'll kick him to the curb before, pissing off Brady, the guy who is the only reason that franchise has been relevant the last 15 years is him showing up. So Bruce Arians needs to shut his mouth and just realize his place. But hey, I don't blame Tom Brady. The NFC's wide open. It's really the old guard, Brady and Rodgers, and I think everyone else in that conference is a step behind. All due respect to the defending champion Rams, I'm not a believer in them, despite what happened last month. But
they won the Super Bowl.
Okay, congrats. They had the easiest road to the Super Bowl of all time.
But they still won. They still won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, good for them. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying it. They played the Bengals. Okay, the Bengals were like the 4th best team in the AFC. Congrats. Okay.
It's not the Rams' fault they had to play the Bengals. I mean,
good for them. No one's going to remember who won the 2022 Super Bowl in 10 years. No one's going to remember. No one cares about the Los Angeles Rams. Their own fans don't even care. Okay, look at the NFC Championship game. The entire stadium in Los Angeles was filled with 49er fans. Okay, the franchise is a paper franchise. They should still be in St. Louis, if you ask me. No one cares about the Rams.
Wow, I don't know how I touched that one. All right, do you guys want to move on to other matters in NFL free agency?
Sure.
So Deshaun Watson, as of this airing, we don't know where he's going yet, but it looks like he's going somewhere because you've got all these teams that are literally like jumping over themselves to try to get this guy from Houston. I mean, look, the Dolphins were connected to him for a long time. I'm very happy the Dolphins did not make a deal for this guy. I don't care whether he's indicted or not. He's not going to be indicted, it looks like, as the grand jury decided not to file any charges. There's not going to be no criminal prosecution. It's going to be all civil stuff. But that being said, there's 22 women that have accused this guy of some pretty heinous stuff. I do not want him wearing aqua and orange. So let him go to New Orleans. Let him go to Atlanta. Let him go to Carolina. Or let him go to Cleveland. Who had Cleveland in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes? And as a result of this dance between Deshaun Watson and the Browns, Baker Mayfield got his nose bent out of joint with his little letter to the Cleveland fans last night on Twitter and I guess Instagram. I don't do Instagram. But on Twitter saying that, thanks for the memories, guys. I gave you everything I had, I mean, look, Baker, you need to be a pro here, buddy. I mean, so this is a business. I mean, you may be back with Cleveland next year. You look like a complete idiot. That being said, I think Baker wants out of Cleveland. I think he knows he's worn out his welcome there. And I think he'd like to go to someplace like Indianapolis maybe to kind of resurrect his career. But the Deshaun Watson thing is going to be interesting because, again, this guy there's going to be some type of an NFL suspension. I mean, there's no way that he does not get suspended for a month or a half a season maybe because of this stuff. But Atlanta, who had Atlanta? Matt Ryan is still a good quarterback. I'm not saying that he's the Matt Ryan of, 6-7 years ago, but Matt Ryan can still win you football games. It's just a stunner to see all these teams jump, literally falling over themselves to try to recruit this guy, to get this guy to come. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes and what the fallout is, because I guarantee you there's going to be some picketing, protesting. Women's groups are going to be not too happy wherever this guy lands from the standpoint of, the civil procedures and everything. So, all right, Robert, go ahead. What's your thoughts on NFL free agency so far, and touch upon Deshaun Watson if you want.
Yeah, it's been kind of a mixed bag. There's some, I guess, big name. I saw before we came on here. Looks like Chandler Jones is heading to Vegas. His services were in high demand, so he lands with the Raiders. There's been some other movement too with some of the other position players, but yeah, I think really Watson is kind of the big question mark. And Chris, I honestly, I don't blame Baker Mayfield for having this reaction. Look, he's got 1 year left with the Browns. If the Browns want to move on from him after the 2022 season, all the power to them. But he's under contract with them. And this idea that they're going to, give Deshaun Watson a look, probably without talking to Baker Mayfield about it, is not a good look for the franchise, which isn't surprising. I mean, the Browns front office, that owner's a dumpkiss. That there's a lot of other people in that front office that are morons. So, with this situation, I think it's poorly handled, because now you've got a situation where if you don't land Watson, which good chance that they don't, because I think that, some of these other teams have been in on it, and they might have some more capital to throw around. You got a guy in Baker Mayfield now that probably doesn't want to play for you. So what are you going to do now without either of those two guys coming to town? Because Mayfield could say, look, I'm not going to play for you guys this year. Trade me if you want a different quarterback that bad. He could easily play hardball with them. So, I think that, I get why people might react that way. That like, oh, he's being a baby or whatever. But look, it's a legitimate thing. Like, he expected to play with that team this year, and I think that it's a bit odd that they decided to get into those sweepstakes without having any sort of conversations with him about it, especially about his future. Like, if they don't want him there, then move on. But yeah, the Watson thing, he's a talented quarterback, no doubt about it. But he is going to face I would expect, a pretty serious punishment, because if the NFL goes too soft on him, they're going to hear about it. Because look, this guy hasn't been held to account by anybody yet. And, I know that people say, oh, this is a money grab, whatever. 20 some accusations are hard to ignore. And it's hard to say like, oh, there's nothing here. There's clearly something here. And, there was a fact, I think it was I can't remember who reported this. I wish I could to give them credit, but they mentioned that during the grand jury phase that they only interviewed one of the accusers.
Yeah.
And they had others sitting outside and they never brought them in to be interviewed. I mean, that to me suggests that this was a sham to begin with, and that it wasn't very much of a process. And, Watson gets off scot-free here. So, he'll land with a team. Really it'll be up to the NFL to decide, okay, what should the punishment be? Should it be, multiple games? Should it be an entire season? I don't think that's off the table. I know that people say like, oh, well, he sat off the season, that should count for something. Well,
no.
That wasn't through the official NFL process. They never put him on the exempt list or anything else. That was the Texans doing. So now it's the NFL's turn, and they could easily say, Deshaun Watson, you're not playing in 2022. And we'll look at it beyond that, because look, serious accusations. The NFL has taken a lot of heat in the past for how they've dealt with similar incidents, whether we're dealing about sexual abuse, whether we're dealing about domestic violence. They have this lingering issue with the Washington commies and Dan Snyder. So it's going to be, I think that there's a good possibility, even if Deshaun Watson gets traded this year, that he doesn't play it down in the 2022 season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Justin, your thoughts on NFL free agency or Watson?
Well, regarding Baker Mayfield, he wants to go whine on social media about his status with the Browns, go for it. But there's a simple solution to avoiding situations like this, and that's to play better at quarterback. Baker Mayfield is a number 1 overall pick. He has not lived up to that expectation. I get that he played injured last year, but the Browns were a team that I don't think it's totally outlandish to say expected to be in the mix to win the AFC. Obviously, they weren't ever considered the favorite, but in the mix, and they fell well short of that. That's a very talented roster that is being held by its quarterback. So I don't think the Browns, in this case, based on his career thus far and what he's done, I don't think they owe him any kind of explanation. He has not earned that respect to be given the heads up. We want to go in a different direction. If he had put in a little more time and had a little more success, that's fine. But at this point, he is not. And I was just looking up on Twitter while Robert was talking, but apparently Chris Mortensen just reported on ESPN that regardless of what happens with Deshaun Watson, the Browns plan on moving on from Baker Mayfield, that they want, quote, an adult at quarterback. So that kind of tells you what you need to know, and I don't necessarily disagree based on what we know about Baker Mayfield. Apparently, Mortensen followed up and said that he would not count out Jimmy Garoppolo as an option there. I'm not quite sure that that's the answer, but Cleveland's desperate, and if they don't think Baker Mayfield's the guy, they're under no obligation to pay him and keep him as their quarterback. Would I go for Deshaun Watson as that guy? Absolutely not. I would not touch this guy with a 10-foot pole. The allegations, even though they were dismissed in the court of law, are far too concerning to me to want to go to bat for this guy and pay him the amount of money that he demands or that he's under contract for. I'm not sure what the status is as far as a civil lawsuit, if that's still going on, but yeah, I think that there's smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You can't tell me that 22 different people all came together with some grand conspiracy to say that Deshaun Watson had inappropriate sexual conduct with all these women. I'm sorry, I'm willing to, when you hear about cases like this, when it's one or two people that are making accusations, male or female, I'm willing to say, give the person the benefit of the doubt, because these celebrities in any walk of life, professional athletes, actors, actresses, whoever, musicians, you cannot deny that there are people out there looking for a money grab. But when it's this amount of people with this basically the same accusation, that's a scary thing. So I don't care if you're the Browns, if you're the Saints, if you're the Panthers, if you're the Dolphins, don't sell your soul to the devil to pick up this guy who, as Robert said, we don't know what his availability is going to be. And just morally, can you honestly, if you're a fan of that team, let's say, you're a fan of the Saints, and you had Drew Brees for all those years. He's an upstanding citizen. People buy his jerseys. He's a representative of the franchise of the city of New Orleans. Okay. By all accounts, very good person. And then you're going to bring in Deshaun Watson after all these allegations against him, after this lawsuit. If you're a parent of a kid who likes the Saints, can you reasonably go buy a Deshaun Watson jersey and not feel like trash about it? I couldn't. And that goes for, the Ezekiel Elliott's of the world, the Ben Roethlisbergers of the world, who have been under similar circumstances. There's just something dirty about it. I wouldn't touch it. I think, a lot of these teams focus on winning and winning only. I don't think that's the best way to go about it. And let's be honest, Deshaun Watson is a talented player. He's by no stretch of the imagination a no doubt Hall of Fame talent. He's still very young. I don't think you're guaranteeing yourself a Super Bowl by acquiring him. So I would just say this: the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Let some other team make the mistake of acquiring him and selling the farm to pick up this guy who might not even play this year. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next topic. Auburn's own Tim Locastro is back in pinstripes. Tim he signed a 1-year major league deal with the Yankees over the weekend. Of course, they signed Anthony Rizzo last night, which is not good. But I mean, I think Locastro knows that his role is going to be as a backup player, pinch runner, that kind of thing. So I mean, I think he knows he's not going to be starting. I mean, we want to see Tim start. We want to see him get as many at bats as he can and everything. But I mean, I think it looks like if he makes the major league roster, he's not going to be a starter unless something crazy happens. So, but I'm happy about it. It's great to see him back in New York, and I know people around here are very happy about that. I mean, obviously Tim is a Yankee fan from his youth, and to have a chance to play for the team that you worshipped as a child is a lifelong dream come true, as we've said before. And we hope everything goes well for him, that he remains healthy, knock on wood. And he has a great season for New York, and we see him on the S Network, and some type of a fairy tale ending type thing. So, Robert, you talked to Tim a couple times in the last few days, and you have some stories on our website, auburnpub.com. So we'll plug those. But your thoughts about Tim being back with the Yanks?
Yeah, really it came down to, I think for him, wanting that second chance. That dream scenario, you get traded to the Yankees, not like the first time. I mean, I know, technically we look at it, back in 2018, he was traded to the Yankees, but, that was off-season transactions. They designated him for assignment. He landed with the Diamondbacks. This was more of a serious opportunity. And, he got playing time right away. The week before he, tears his ACL, he hits his first homer with the Yankees. So, he was really coming into his own, I think, and really finding a role with the team, getting some spot starts here or there, being a defensive replacement, that kind of thing, which is really, how he's positioned himself. He's been a solid reserve outfielder for now 2 different clubs. in the last few years here. But I think, not being able to finish out the season, sustaining that, major injury, left a bad taste in his mouth. And once free agency opened it up, and, after the lockout ended, there were some other teams interested, but the Yankees were in the mix too. And it just seems like, anything that he could do to get back to playing with the Yankees, he wanted to do. He wanted to get that chance to, play out a season at least. He's got a 1-year deal here. Let's see what he can make of it. But there was other interest, which tells me that there are still teams out there that value a guy with some of the throwback skills. He's not going to hit 30 home runs for you, but he can steal bases. He can play solid defense. He can definitely fill in spot starts, that kind of thing. And that's an asset for any team, especially a team like the Yankees that can contend for a playoff spot and they hope a World Series. So I think it's a good fit for him. I think it's a good opportunity for him to be able to bounce back from the ACL, maybe get some playing time. His first priority is making that opening day roster because the Yankees open at home at Yankee Stadium against the Red Sox. So I think that'll be a cool moment for him, growing up as a Yankee fan, if he can make that roster and, be on the field for those festivities. That's going to be a cool feeling, I think, if that happens. Plus, coincidentally, the Red Sox were the team that the Yankees played when he tore his ACL. So kind of come full circle with that. But, I think it's a good opportunity for him. Certainly, maybe there's some other teams out there that offered him, more money or, whatever, more playing time, potential starting job. I think the Yankees were at the top of the list once they expressed interest.
Yeah, no, it's look, it's going to be happy to, hopefully, like I said, he makes the big league team. And I mean, we've heard talk that there might be expanded rosters maybe for the beginning of the season because, because of everything, the after effects of the lockout, and hopefully he'll make it in some way and get a chance to do something and stick around. So Justin, anything you want to say about Tim?
Yeah, I'd be curious if you gave him a little truth serum to see if he did have offers from other teams. I think we talked about this maybe last year, going into last baseball season, just what a critical time in Locastro's career that it is, because he's no longer a prospect. He's a major leaguer who's kind of on the fringe of, he's not a everyday starter. And I think guys like that, they have to bring something to the table to stick in these major league lineups, especially for someone like Locastro, who I think is he 30 years old now?
He's going to be 30 in July.
Yeah. So, if you're a major league franchise, I think you look at someone like Locastro versus a younger guy who's maybe in their mid 20s. Maybe you want to roll with the younger guy just to see what they got, because Locastro's a bit of a known quantity. So I'd be curious if he did have other opportunities that would have led to more direct playing time. But to be honest, even though you look at the Yankees lineup on paper, they seem to have a very deep roster, kind of at both the outfield and infield. But their projected starting lineup right now, I think we all know Giancarlo Stanton he's not an outfielder anymore. He's a DH, so you don't really have to worry about him. But their outfield is looking like Joey Gallo in left, Aaron Hicks in center, Aaron Judge in right. Two of those guys have pretty extensive, kind of injury concerns. So I don't know the last time either of those guys played a complete season. Obviously, Aaron Judge has been banged up for several years in a row, and including the shortened COVID season a couple of years ago. So, I think it would not shock me one bit if one of those guys gets hurt pretty early in the season, and Locastro kind of gets one of those outfield spots and gets a nice run with it. And maybe that's a path for him to get more playing time. But cool story, obviously, for those who love baseball in Auburn and love following his story, that he gets another chance to kind of live out that childhood dream of playing for the Yankees. It's unfortunate the way it ended last year. He was kind of, while his numbers weren't out of this world in a short stint with the Yankees last year. I think you got the sense that he was kind of providing a little bit of a spark because he is a different type of player in terms of speed and running the bases. So I think he's one of those guys that can kind of become a cult hero with the Yankees if he's given that opportunity. So it'll just come down to who's able to stay healthy. And based on who the Yankees have, I'm a little skeptical that some of those guys will, and I think he'll get an opportunity.
Yep. All right. So our last topic is the NCAA men's basketball tournament starts up. Actually started last night with the first four. And then I guess tonight we could say we have the second part of the first four. And then the thing really gets rolling tomorrow. I always love the first weekend of the NCAA basketball tournament because it's literally basketball from noon to midnight nonstop. And it's so amazing. And the fact now that all the games are nationally broadcast between CBS, TBS, True TV, TNT, all these games are now on you can watch them whenever you want. It's great. One of my favorite times of the year. So Final Four, I'm not going to go through my entire bracket because I didn't fill one out. I just did Final Fours. So I've got Gonzaga in the West, Kentucky in the East, Villanova in the South, Kansas in the Midwest. Robert, your Final Four. Or if you want to expound, go ahead.
Yeah, I unlike Chris, I did fill out a bracket. I mean, I don't know how you get to a Final Four without filling out a bracket, but maybe he just looks at the teams and picks one from each region, I guess. Looking at the bracket, I mean, there's some upset potential here, and as a betting man, you can.
Oh yeah.
You can bet that some of them get my attention. I know that. Vermont against Arkansas, that's a tasty little pick right there. If you want to sprinkle anything on that, Vermont's a very good team. We know their history very well in the NCAA tournament. And I think they were a 13 seed the year that they upset Syracuse. I think that history could repeat itself. Chattanooga, also a 13 seed. They're playing Illinois. I think Chattanooga's a darn good team. They could win that. In that same region, UAB's playing Houston. Houston's a very good team. They could run away with that pretty easily. But UAB's a good scoring team, and that's a 12 versus 5, always a tough one. And then you look at elsewhere in the bracket. Indiana won last night. They're looking like a pretty good team down the stretch here. They play St. Mary's, and that's not going to be an easy out. St. Mary's has gone toe-to-toe with Gonzaga. They play in the same conference. So, that's a tough 5-12 matchup there. Virginia Tech is an 11, which, they won the ACC tournament and they're 11 seed, I think largely due to their regular season play, but they're a team that's caught fire here late in the season, and they're going to be dangerous in the tournament. I think they could make the Sweet 16 potentially. And then, South Dakota State, another 13 seed. They play Providence again. Providence, tough team, but South Dakota State can score. So those are some of the upsets I'm looking at. But in terms of the Final Four, I do have Gonzaga. I do have Kentucky. I agree with Chris on that side. I have Tennessee coming out of the South region. That's a tough one because Arizona, very good team. Pac-12. They've been pretty dominant this year. I think they're going to be a tough out, but I think Tennessee's a better all-around team, and Villanova's in that region too, as Chris mentioned. So we know Villanova's history. And then in the Midwestern region, I have Iowa. The Big Ten has been a tough conference this year. I think that they're playing great basketball. I think they do have a history though of in the tournament. There hasn't been a Big Ten a champion from the Big Ten since I don't even think I was in high school yet, to be honest. So it was back in 2000 with Michigan State. So, I think Iowa will make the Final Four. That region I think is a little bit weak. Auburn has struggled down the stretch. Kansas is, okay, out of the Big 12. I think Iowa can do some damage though. They have a pretty good team from top to bottom. I think they'll make the Final Four. My championship game pick is Gonzaga versus Tennessee, with Gonzaga winning it all. I think at the end of the day, Gonzaga is the best team in the country. the best all-around team in the country. They can score. They put up a lot of points. And they play, solidly on defense. So I think it's going to be tough to knock them off. They're in the same region as Duke. I don't think Duke, is half the team that Gonzaga is. Gonzaga should easily come out of that region and win the national championship.
Justin, who do you got?
Well, I'm not filling out a bracket. I refuse to. So I'm only going to give one team that I expect will go all the way. And I'm on Wisconsin. Of course, the Badgers, kind of a little bit like Syracuse. They some regular seasons are better than others. This year they're number 3 seed, but they always seem to kind of find a way to make it a little farther than everyone expects. I just read that Wisconsin and Purdue are the 2 teams that have 12 wins against other tournament teams. That's the most among anyone. So obviously they played tough schedule and did pretty well against that schedule, being a number 3 seed. Went out a little early in the Big Ten tournament, which is maybe a little concerning, but I like Wisconsin. I always pick Wisconsin to go far in the tournament, and why not do that again this year? And hey, what better story than Wisconsin ending Michigan's season, getting their lame coach suspended because he threw a fit at the end of one of their games, Juwan Howard, get him out of here. They beat up one of their rivals, and they go on a nice NCAA tournament run. That's how I see it playing out. I'd love to talk about Syracuse, but because they refused to get rid of Jim Boeheim, unfortunately, they didn't make the tournament this year because Jim can only recruit his sons to play. So they didn't make it this year. And we won't be able to watch them upset a couple teams because they're not there.
I want to throw out something out there, but I'm sure you guys are quite aware of Bryant College, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Bulldogs, the athletic director of Bryant is Auburn, New York native Bill Smith. Bill Smith graduated a year before me. He was an incredible football player, one of the best football players in Section 3 in his high school career, and he played football at Colgate. And you guys know if you're playing football at Colgate, you are a smart person. And Bill graduated from Colgate and actually went to law school and picked up a law degree, and then got into athletics, college athletics, and he's been the athletic director at Bryant for about 16 years. So I want to give a tip of the cap to Bill Smith and the job that he's done at Bryant College. They have a very good lacrosse team too. Their football team is solid, but obviously getting to the big dance here in basketball is pretty darn good. So a little bit of an Auburn connection there. And Bill, actually, really nice guy, sat ahead of me in health class back when I was a junior back in 83, 84, really nice guy. And I'm really happy for him and the success that they've had. So,
well, if they win the play-in game, Chris, there's a story for you right there. You can call up your old buddy and interview him. Got an NCAA tournament Auburn connection there.
If he remembers me, I'd be surprised, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. So, yeah. All righty. Anything else you guys want to add, or you want to wrap it up?
Oh, I'm not the sexist on this program. I do want to offer my women's Final Four bracket here, my Final Four anyway. I got South Carolina, Baylor, Stanford, and UConn. South Carolina beating UConn for the title. More importantly, though, I have the UB women. As a Western New York native, I have the UB women going to the Sweet 16. I think they will upset Tennessee and go through Oregon to get to Louisville. So those are my picks.
I am the only person here who can say that their alma mater is playing in the women's tournament. The UAlbany Great Danes knocking off the number 1 seeded Maine Black Bears and up in Orono there last week. I'm very, very proud because Yvonne Hawkins, who's an assistant coach for the Great Danes, was the head assistant coach when I was there back in the late 80s, covering the team for the Albany Student Press. So I'm absolutely thrilled for Yvonne and the Great Danes that they're in the tournament. Sadly, they are a 16 seed. They're playing Louisville in Louisville. I mean, look, it'd be an upset of all upsets. There's only been one. I think there's only been one time, maybe two times that a 16's beaten a one in the women's tournament. Harvard beat Stanford, I believe, back in the late 90s. I think that may be the only one. History can repeat itself. If it's happened once, it can happen again. But that being said, very unlikely. But still, congratulations to the Great Danes. Colleen Mullen, the head coach, has done an amazing job. Has Albany back in the tournament for the first time in 5 years. So, as an alum, I'm very proud of the job that they've done. Roberts is nodding his head like, come on, wrap it up, Chris. So, anyways, all right. But that's who I like Albany.
I was nodding in agreement.
Okay. Hey, you got to support the SUNY schools. And UB, obviously, Felicia Legette-Jack,
Yeah.
great women's basketball coach, formerly coached, I believe, in Indiana. Who knows? Maybe she'll get the Syracuse job, which would be great at her alma mater. She went to high school. I remember when she was the best high school player in Section 3 at Nottingham High School back in the early 80s, and then later went to SU and was a great pro player there. So it'd be great to see her come back to Syracuse and get that women's team. A few years ago, they were in the Final Four, and obviously that you can build a winning team here in Central New York. It'd be great to see her come back and maybe continue that, but we'll see what happens. So, Justin, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Chris, you're thinking too small. She should coach the men's team.
The other thing is, look, we can laugh. I think there are some great women's coaches that would do an amazing job coaching any men's college basketball team or an NBA team. Becky Hammond has obviously been talked about quite a bit. The San Antonio Spurs assistant who is the head coach of the WNBA's Las Vegas Aces. I would love to see her get a job like, an NBA job, obviously, or a major Division I job. I mean, look, men coach women's teams, okay, all the time in Division I. We see it all the time. Certainly, there are women coaches that could do a very good job coaching men's teams. Kim Mulkey, the current LSU former Baylor coach, comes to mind. Pat Head Summit, the Tennessee legend. I think she would have been a great men's coach if she had ever had the opportunity. So maybe someday we'll see that. I think it'd be great. Maybe some athletic director will take a chance and hire a qualified woman to coach a men's team. So, all right. We're going to wrap it up, folks. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you next week or some other time.